Every year, people land with either the gear up on a runway, which is not good, or even worse, they land gear down on the water. So this video is hopefully going to give you some pointers on how to avoid a gear in the wrong position landing. Camber flaps are up, water rudder's down. So you're going to hear me calling out on downwind. On base, I'm going to check the gear again. And on final, positive rate of climb, gear up. My hand stays on the lever while it's in transit until I confirm that it's up. Gear up, indicating up. My name is Rich Bookbinder. I'm the Safety and Standardization Pilot here at Icon Aircraft. My background includes 30 years of flying experience. I've been a seaplane pilot for 2 years and then spent 24 years of my career flying for a large agency in California, conducting search and rescue, medevacs, and law enforcement missions. The purpose of the video today is to offer you pointers on how to prevent gear in the wrong position landings. Seems simple enough. You land with the gear down for the runway and gear up for the water, but every year people still continue to land with the gear in the wrong position. So I'm going to offer you 6 tips or cues. We call them cues because they occur on every flight, these cues. And they are, number 1, when you take off, positive rate of climb, gear comes up. And positive rate of climb means when you see on the vertical speed that you have a positive rate, then gear is up. You don't want to do it too soon. If you do it too soon, you risk the chance of settling back down on the runway while the gear is in transition. Number 2 is when you first level off from a climb and reduce the power for cruise, that's your second cue, your second reminder to check that the gear is up. Maybe you forgot and got distracted while you were taking off. So when you level off, power reduction for cruise, check the gear again, confirm the gear is up. The third cue is when you make a conscious decision to go to the water, you do what's called a feet wet check. And that's a reminder, once again, this is now your third reminder, to check the gear is up for water landings. The fourth cue will be when you make the first power reduction for landing. Normally that will be downwind of beam your landing spot, but sometimes landing on a body of water, you might have to do a straight in depending on terrain. So rather than say it's always a beam your landing spot, do it when you make the first power reduction for landing. That's another cue or reminder to check the gear is up for water landings. The next cue will be turning base. Whenever you're turning base leg, always check to make sure the gear is up, confirm it. And the last cue is anytime you roll out wings level, so you're on final, looking at whatever landing surface you're landing on, whether it's a runway or water, when you roll out wings level on final, your last check is to check to make sure the gear is in the correct position. Okay, here we go, full throttle. Now 40 knots, we start to apply pressure, 50 knots, we rotate. Positive rate of climb. Gear coming up. Gear is up, indicating up. So that's my first check. Positive rate of climb, gear up. I've confirmed the gear is up. So I did my first check. Positive rate of climb, gear up. My next cue will be when I level off and cruise and throttle back for the first time for level off. That's my second cue to check the gear, in case you forgot to retract it during takeoff. The Washington Seaplane Pilots Association did a study showing that in the vast majority of accidents where an amphibious aircraft landed gear down in the water, it could have been prevented with a simple act of ensuring that you raise the gear after takeoff from the runway. Now you might ask, wouldn't they all be prevented by that simple task? The answer is no. There have been a few cases where they have called out over the water, gear up for water, and then they actually put the gear down without thinking about it. And a lot of times that's due to muscle memory. Maybe they're used to flying a land plane most of the time, and they're used to putting the gear down on every single landing. For whatever reason, it happens. So these are really critical steps to make sure that you always verify, not only call it out, but touch it and confirm that you're doing the right thing with the gear. So we level off for cruise, lower the nose, throttle back for cruise power setting. That's our second cue to check the gear. So first, power reduction at level off, checking the gear. Gear is up, indicating up. That's my second check. Now my third check is, we're going to the lake. We're going to do a feet wet check. So en route to the water, feet wet check. Gear up, indicating up for water. So we've checked it 3 times already. Feet wet check is complete, but once again, we'll check the gear again either downwind to beam our landing spot, or if we're going to do a straight in, when we make our power reduction for landing, that's the time to check the gear. Then we check it again on base, and then again on final. All right, so I'm going to go out here and do a little pattern. All right, throttle 3000, AOA white line, and the 3 checks. Gear up for water, indicating up. Flaps, I'm going to put down full after I confirm it's in the white arc. Below 75, check. Flaps coming down. Pitch for AOA white line. Water rudder up. So gear up for water, indicating up. Flaps full, water rudder up. Notice I look, I touch, I confirm. Okay, turning base. Gear is up, indicating up for water. Full, water rudder up. And once again on final, I'll do the 3rd check. Wings level on final, gears up for water, indicating up. Pre-landing check complete. To build up good muscle memory, even if you're staying in the pattern at an airport with a runway and practicing takeoff and landings, I recommend on every takeoff, positive rate of climb, gear up. That builds up the good habit pattern of always retracting the gear after every takeoff. Even though it's tempting to think, I'll just keep the gear down, I'm staying in the pattern. But then you may build up a negative habit of forgetting to retract the gear after takeoff. So every takeoff, even if you're staying in the pattern, gear up, positive rate of climb. And then also it forces you to remember to put the gear down when you're downwind to beam your touchdown point in the pattern within a runway airport.
We'll level off at 1,100. Okay, so now I'm downwind, below 75 knots, that's our gear operating speed. Gear down for runway. I'm going to hold my hand on the gear lever while it's in transit. Gear is down, indicating down. I keep my hand on there because if it gets stuck in transit and you just put it down and forget about it, you might not realize that it's stuck. So I keep my hand on it until I get a down indication. Once again, AOA white line, I'm on base. Gear down for runway, indicating down, flaps up, water rudder up. Notice I've checked it twice already. Seems redundant, but sometimes people get distracted and forget. And once again, my last check is once you roll out wings level, lined up with your landing, whether it's a runway or water, that's your last check. So lined up on final, gear down for runway, indicating down, up, water rudder up. Now at this point, if I found my gear was not down, I would just go around. If you try and salvage it at the last minute, the gear would be in transit, you risk landing with the gear not fully extended. Okay, gear is down for runway, indicating down, we're good to go. Final check done.
The concept of using 6 cues or reminders to put the gear in the correct position was originally thought of by Burke Mees. He's a well-known seaplane instructor and writer for Waterflying magazine. He's written several articles. This one is called Strategies for Landing Gear Up on the Water Every Time. And if you're not a member of the Seaplane Pilots Association, I recommend joining it. They have a great magazine, a lot of resources. He is the one where I first got the idea of using 6 cues. I do it every time. By the time I get to the water, I've already checked the gear 6 times. So the point of it, what seems redundant, is to prevent you from becoming a statistic, because you might think it won't happen to me, but it happens to everybody. Experienced pilots, inexperienced pilot, and everybody in between. So to avoid becoming a statistic, do these 6 cues every time you fly, and then you will not become a statistic. You'll have the gear in the correct position on every landing.